Good morning, neighbors. It is 6.5 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock on this, the 5th day of September. Good morning to you and welcome to the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital. But you knew that already, didn't you? All right, so good morning to you. Of course, on the show this morning, it's all about the R's. The show is being brought to you by the letter R. Ruben is in the mix. Richard Raghubar Singh is in the mix. Dr. Paul Richards is in the mix. Of course, my name is Steve Khan. We'll keep you company until 9 o'clock this morning. Let's get straight into the WTs. Yep, second day of the school term, and I tell you, yesterday afternoon and morning, there it was traffic. All right? Taking a look at the Solos. You head northbound, Freeport towards Sugargonis, and then Charlieville. Right after Sugargonis, you're going to get traffic straight up towards the interchange volume if you're heading westbound towards Barataria, and you're going to get some traffic here in the Port of Spain. Valencia stretch towards the bypass, also a bit sticky this morning, and you've got some traffic, some heavy traffic. Heading straight up towards Piarco and then Trin City to Uwe by Arima Old Road, you've got some traffic. Takarigo heading into Mokoya, also got some traffic on the Eastern Main Road. Automaraval, you're beginning to build as well from Chin Chin Road to Ibis Gardens on the Southern Main Road as you head northbound. You've got some traffic there. For weird, it's odd. San Fernando, I got nothing to tell you about. All right. Of course, let's check to see what our weather is going to be like for today. I tell you, it's going to be one of those wet days. We got some rain coming, partly cloudy to cloudy conditions with scattered showers and high 70% chance of a few heavy showers, thunderstorms, mainly during the morning. Yeah, when I came in, it was a bit looking like a bit like Richard Paul's face. It was a bit set up. Conditions expected to improve by afternoon to give mostly settled evening, all right, and night. As I said, it's 26 degrees on both islands at Piarco and Crown Point. Check in some temps. Toronto, you're at 21. Miami, 27. Orlando, 22. New York, 24. Atlanta, you're 20. London, 24 as well. Tampa, 23. Washington, D.C., you're at 25. And for my good friend out in LA, you're sitting at 18 degrees all in Celsius. All right. So there you go. WTs. Good morning to you, Paul Richards.
Good morning, Steve Carrot. Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Let's say good morning going out to, I think, Oliver and Warren popped in first. Let me see. He did. Good morning to you, Ollie. Pauline, good morning to you out in Florida. Which part in Florida are you? You know, Florida is kind of big. Miss Ingrid in Tucson, Arizona, good morning. Marcia Rock. Ray, who's back in West Palm Beach, Florida, good morning to you. Ewart Ratchball, good morning. Doreen Pierre, Ms. Maloney Doodoo, long time. Hope all is well. Send us messages via YouTube. You two can do that as we stream video on YouTube. All right, our message board, they're trying to get it up and running. Don't know what's going on there, but yeah, it's just on YouTube. So what's going on, Paul? What's you doing? You're biting your lip there. What you working on?
News. Morning, everyone.
Are you reading news again this morning?
I don't think so. I'll find out closer to 7 o'clock. Good morning, everyone. Good Tuesday morning. Yesterday was traffic galore.
Yeah, so I
morning and afternoon. Today will be more traffic galore.
Mm-hmm.
Until the young ones have headed back out of school, and not all, because some are opening Wednesday. Tomorrow, some schools are opening Wednesday.
Yes. Yeah.
So it'll be even more as the week progresses. But I mean, that's the cycle that we've become accustomed to. So yeah, it's just to get through this week and kind of settle down.
That's what's
one of the more important semesters in the school term, because some have gone from primary to secondary, some have gone from kindergarten to primary. Most have gone up a term, a level from either standard 1 to standard 2 or form 1 to form 2, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a new environment, it's a new workload, it's a new curriculum. So it's a very, very important term. Is it the longest term? I think so.
I think so. Well, let me ask you a question, Paul.
Yeah.
Do you think at the tender age of 10, 11, that children should be writing SEA, a life-changing exam?
Well, many schools have thought on that.
Mm-hmm.
The age is not the issue for me. And it's not as life-changing as you would like to propose.
Mm-hmm.
Because people have this idea that, oh my God, if you don't pass through the school you want, or a prestige school, or X and Y, that your life is changed forever. It's changed, but it's not as life-changing as people make it out to be. Yes, there's an impact on your life depending on the school you go to, but you can go to any school and do well, or most schools and do well. And people have this misnomer about, oh my God, if my child doesn't get into St. Mary's College or Hillview or St. Joseph's Convent or Bishops, they're going to have, no. It depends on the work the parent puts in also, because your child can also go to a so-called prestige school and do very badly if you don't put in the work.
Correct.
Okay?
Yeah, that's the conversation
I think continuous assessment is the way to go. But we talk a lot about SEA, but we also are a very exam-based society all the way through, as opposed to a continuous assessment of what people learned and if they are ready to progress to the next stage of learning. So it's not a yes or no question. If we sort out our issues related to particularly government administered schools, providing a better education for children, and I'm not saying all don't, but clearly there's a standard disparity between denominational schools or schools run by denominational boards and government administered schools. And I don't know why is it so difficult, because the schools that are under the government control are the government schools. So there's this constant comparison to board-run schools when the government has all the power to change the output and the systems in government-run schools. So and provide the resources, because education usually gets the biggest share of the pie. But I don't know why it seems so difficult over administration after administration, and this conversation about board school versus denominational schools. And the reasons are very simple, the reasons are actually quite simple. Board schools have more resources. Board schools have a tighter rein on teacher performance. And they don't make joke. Board schools have more vibrant PTAs, and in many cases closer connections to parents and communities, which provides support to students. So even if Mary or Johnny, little Johnny or little Mary, are having issues, the response to the issues is faster, as opposed to government schools, where in many cases, a lot of cases, most cases actually from what I've seen, is more conveyor belt type education. And that's not to say students don't do well in government schools. Many students do. But the systems are not as responsive as board-run schools. And that's all it is.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I agree with you on that.
And the government schools, I always talk about this situation that I encountered about, I would say about 9 or 8 years ago, when my professors came down to do a survey on math anxiety, a research project on math anxiety. And we got to do administrative survey in 14 or so primary schools. 7 government-run primary schools and 7 denominational primary schools. And the denominational primary schools included schools from the Catholic board and schools from the Sanata Dhamma Mahasabha, the Hindu one of the Hindu board schools, right? And they knew we got all the authorizations. They knew we were coming. We called to reconfirm because the service took place over the period of a week. So we would do like about 3 or 4 schools a day, right? Because we had to move around between North Trinidad, the East-West corridor, and Central Trinidad. And we didn't go to South. And so the weeks before we wrote to say we're coming, and this day we're confirming the day and the availability of the teachers and the students to administer, because it's a survey you have to administer and a questionnaire to gather data. And every day before, weeks before, and the day before, we'd say, well, tomorrow is your day. We're coming at X time. We didn't reach late. One day, we turned up. The administrator took us to the classroom. In every one of the board-run schools we went to, there was somebody at the gate to greet us. We went to the classroom. Students were all seated in the classroom. The teacher and the assistant teacher were in the classroom. When we got to the classroom, the students all stood up in all the board schools, said good afternoon or good morning. Welcome to our schools. And we administered very orderly. In 4 of the government schools, there was no teacher in the class. The principal didn't know where the teacher was. Half the students running about the classroom in a disarray. This is primary school. Huh? In another 2, the teacher was there, but had little classroom management skills because the students were doing all sorts of stuff. And in one of the government schools, things went very orderly because the teacher was very diligent. What does that tell you? There's a practical example of the difference in the way board-run schools are run with a business and government at the primary level.
Yeah.
Transpose that to teenagers. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Who is giving more trouble because they're coming into their own and they're a little rebellious sometimes, you know? That and that is the main problem. It's a management issue. It is not that because Johnny or Mary went to St. Mary's or Fatima, they're brighter. And another thing is that the board schools, generally, I think the principal has a 20% pick. Yeah. So X and Y, they have to be so-called bright, you know. Oh, yes, the principals have a pick of the students when the essay results come out. You understand? So very often they naturally collect I don't want to say collect, it's not like cattle. They identify who they want based on their grades and input them into their schools. So the students at that stage, because your intellectual capacity changes as you grow, based on what you're exposed to. The board schools start off with students who are more competent at that stage generally. They have more resources, and the teachers are usually, unfortunately, not the better trained, you know, but they have more resources to work with. And they held to a higher code because the board running the school don't make joke with teacher absenteeism. We have a thing in Trinidad Tobago where we primarily test students' performance. We don't really test teacher performance, you know.
No. And
as much as we should, let me say. And very often, when you look at the data coming out of the SC, when you could get it, remember Professor Desran spoke about that yesterday. If an entire classroom is failing or performing badly, it's not the students, it's the teacher or the systems. If an entire school district of the 14 districts is underperforming when compared to the baseline nationally, it's not the students. It's the teachers or the systems. But we don't like to, that's why Dr. Desran yesterday told us we need the data to do the analysis, as opposed to constantly just blaming the students. Oh, they this and they that, and they quote unquote.
The easiest way out. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're the more vulnerable group. They have no response. They can't answer back. Well, it's not me, it's the teacher. It's the school and do this. It's the teacher and turn up for work. You understand? I'm not saying that is the case for all government schools. So don't get me wrong. But in many cases, and it's also seeping into some of the denominational schools also. Because it ain't all rosy in all denominational or borderline schools. So when you ask the question about SCA, right? Let me tell you something. At some point, you're going to bounce up. The SCA is what you call a standardized exam. So it tells you, it's a baseline assessment of where your child is compared to a national baseline, because the exam conditions are equalized for everybody writing the examination. So all it tells you is how your child is doing in terms of understanding the work, the curriculum, the subject matters at a particular level. And at some point, your child is going to encounter a standardized examination or 10 or 12. So there's a big fuss about whether it should go or it should stay. You still have to have standardized examinations. It's just that the standardized examinations shouldn't be weighted so that one exam contributes to your assessment to move from primary, secondary school. It should be your grades in standard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you make an overall assessment of where the child is, or how the child has progressed, and you move the child to a next level. And it shouldn't be about whether it's a prestige school or a government school. So it should be that all schools are performing adequately, and any school your child goes into provides the optimal educational environment for your child to do the best. So that's my rant.
That's a very good rant, Paul. That's a very good. There's nothing you said there.
I think that's studied for long enough. So, and the sad thing about it is that when students, it should not be that you wait to SCA to find. SCA shouldn't tell you a student is doing badly or underperforming.
Correct.
You should know that by standard 2, at least, that there's a trend that this child is not coping for some reason. Identify the reason and remediate it and fix the issue. Whether it's a learning disability, sometimes it's economics. Sometimes the child doesn't get enough to eat. Sometimes there's discord at the home and the child can't study because the home is too confrontational, parents fighting. There are a lot of factors that can contribute to a child's underperformance. Sometimes the teacher can't teach. Sometimes
the teacher cannot teach. That's correct.
That's as simple as it is. The teacher knows the subject matter for him or herself, but the teacher is not good at disseminating the information and assessing the student. So if the system is working right, that child who's struggling is identified by at least standard 2. So you ain't waiting until SCA hit you and the child scoring 10 and 12 in language arts and mathematics. You should know that before. Intervention should come before. So. But this is not brain surgery around the world. This is not new. This is what I'm telling you are not new ideas. They're documented. There's something called response to intervention. It's a protocol that's applied all over North America and Europe to do exactly what I'm talking about here. But we just don't seem to want to do it. We say student support services, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Student support services is oversubscribed and under-resourced.
So Guy Small says, good morning, Dr. Paul just described why parents prefer board-run school.
Yeah, I understand that, but it should not be like that.
Mrs. Zara said, well, that is not so.
No comment.
Yeah, Winston Jones, good morning to you as well. All right. 25 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock. I'll try and see if I get Martin Lumpkin in after 7.
The other, speaking of education,
I sent you a message last night. I sent you a message yesterday, but I have this bad habit of not hitting send. So when I looked to see this morning, I didn't send the message. So it makes no sense.
Yeah, we can get Martin, and we're going to continue our discussion this morning on crime. Let's say good morning to our colleagues up at Cascadia Hotel. We had a wonderful day yesterday, a management meeting.
Yeah.
And the food was great. More than anything
else. It was amazing. Yeah. Ooh, that food
Barry and Ian and Ravi and the crew at Cascadia. Thank you for hosting us yesterday. Your food was good.
It was great.
He was in heaven.
I was in heaven.
Yeah.
And that pepper sauce, whoo, mama.
Yeah. After I asked him where they got the pepper sauce.
They make it on their own.
Really?
Yeah.
Good stuff. You all go up. But then this Cascadia Sunday brunch does very, very well. For the transparency, Cascadia is part of our group. We're not talking about them because of that, because the food is really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, folks, I eat a lot.
So the education ministry has disseminated that only 0.4% of school repair work continued. The rest is expected to be completed this week, and 0.6% of schools opened on rotation due to extensive repair works still being completed.
Mm-hmm.
The minister also said 97% of teachers and 83% of students turned out for primary, 94% of teachers and 82% of students turned out at the secondary level. Well, there's still the issue, a lot of issues being worked out regarding the integration of migrant children. I'm not surprised, to be very honest. I didn't think there was a level of alacrity being administered there, but the Catholic board had indicated quite early on that they were willing to take on the migrant children at their schools, and apparently they're still sorting out the paperwork, because only the ones whose parents have been documented, and by extension them, so the ministries of CARICOM and Foreign Affairs and National Security will be allowed in schools. Right? So.
Yeah. We will chat with Martin Lumpkin, the president of TUTOR, next hour. See how fast that is holding. See how fast?
So that's why I understand Professor Diosuran's call for data, because it's only when you get the data that you can do a proper analysis of what schools are performing, and then do a deeper dive into the reasons a school or a class or a child may be underperforming. Yeah. And then several potential reasons.
Beauty Culture says you left out parental support of students.
No, I did not. I said sometimes they don't have the support at home.
Yeah.
I said the home environment also needs to be thing. And we also said in the national schools, the PTA boards are more vibrant. The PTA system is more vibrant.
Yeah.
We said so.
Yeah, there's some PTA meetings where sometimes only 2 parents show up.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, Ingrid Adams. Labor Day was yesterday. People had a ball.
You're tired. I saw a lot of videos. Well, I watched it a little bit on YouTube. The Juve was streamed live on YouTube yesterday. I saw a police officer with a Trinidad flag wheeling down the place. You don't call it that. I saw videos.
Twice I went to Labor Day, I attended. I wasn't particularly impressed, because I was hearing my patriotism kicked in. I wasn't seeing enough red, white, and black, and I was seeing too much yellow and green and too much Haitian flag and music.
Really?
So I promptly went back in the train.
I played Caribana a lot of times, but then when I played, it's a big group of us. So we always had a ball.
Not my scene.
Yeah. Good morning,
it's interesting because it's a celebration of Caribbean culture in New York. So I understand why it's so popular, because when you're out there and the American culture hits you, you get very homesick. So anything that takes you back home, even for a day, you tend to appreciate it.
Yes. I can attest that. Mrs. R.
It's raining. It's pouring.
It is. Yeah.
It's going to be cool today. It's raining. There's a drizzle around.
I hope the bees in my tree disappear. I hope the leaves.
It's going to be as hot as yesterday. There was a little scorcher. A couple of schools also had to send home their students because they have no water.
Yeah, I think the desal plant is running at 80-85% now.
Yeah.
For Central and South. Because I was at the Pet Butler, and at 1:48 the power dipped. Because the minute we have a problem, the first thing I do is watch the time, because I have to write a report. But 148 it dipped, and then I went into a couple of groups, and it dipped in south and east and in Port of Spain, and I said, "Ooh." So I just checked with the office, and everything was fine here. Yeah, so that what they said with the desal plant with that power dip on Saturday caused an electrical issue, which I think they're still working on, but they got most of it up and running now. Beauty culture. Good morning, Guy Small. Correct, Paul. It has been taken over by the Haitians and green and yellow flags. Okay. I hope you had a good time, Guy Small. Who else was in my message board? Pauline. Yes, you're in Lauderdale. Send a ticket. I need to go. Gloria Gray. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Ragubasi.
Morning,
Good
Richard.
morning, guys. Good morning, guys. Good morning to our listeners, wherever you are.
Surprise. The cost of the Commission of Inquiry into the Superior Fuel Trading Company diving tragedy,
which we can't get a report for,
to rise. Well, Avril's commissioner husband, Mr. Lynch, King's Counsel, is holding a
Avril Lynch.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, she's not AV again.
Tomorrow.
She's AL.
Right? The cost is now estimated at over $21 million.
Yeah, real money to burn, man.
So, of that figure,
21.
10 million is in legal fees. The lawyers always make the money.
Whoa!
The lawyers always make the money. Always. The lion's share going to Chairman Jerome Lynch, King's Counsel, at $3.4 million. What? Senior Counsel Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj at $3.2 million. And several ATAL junior counsels, a combined cost of $2.2 million.
I wonder which practice they made.
So, almost half.
Rich
is lawyer fees. Now, how do you think this makes the families of the victims feel?
Mm-hmm. I ain't saying nothing.
How do you think the families of the victims feel when they are I'm trying to be delicate and diplomatic here, left without their loved ones?
They want justice.
In many cases, the breadwinners. Sorry?
I said they want justice for what they feel was an injustice done to their family members.
And part of justice
inquiry is part of the route to that, I guess.
Yeah, but part of the justice to them is going to be monetary compensation.
Yeah.
Because in many, if not all the cases, those men were the breadwinners in the families.
Yeah.
And money to bring back your loved one, but it helps you feel, what's the word? I don't want to say rehabilitated, but some sort of, in some way, compensated for your tremendous loss. And it's not to replace the life of your loved one, but certainly it helps you to cope with life moving forward in some way, in many, many ways. So when they hear, and a lot of it has been paid already, yeah? From the office of the Prime Minister, has spent $15 million already. $14,538,511.40. That always puzzles me when they get the cents. When they go down to the 40 cents is there. How the 40 cents is getting there?
VAT.
What is the VAT?
VAT always adds on those things.
Okay. Yeah. So I know. So Mr. Lynch, King's Counsel, will hold a press conference tomorrow to field questions from the media on why there's been a request for a second extension to know. Is it September?
November.
September 30th, I think it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was November, you said.
Okay, it could be November. I could stand corrected. I already can't remember. and the reasons were all he gave some preliminary reasons as to wanting to make sure, based on some cases he cited, that no one had an issue with the final report and everyone had a chance to be heard comprehensively. So it's a comprehensive report. But he will compensate. Yes, DS Lips, thank you. Compensated. That's what I was looking for just now. He will hold that conference tomorrow, and Abby will be very, very happy. She just stays started in the newsroom so she can hear the man talk.
Yeah. AL. Avril Lynch.
Right? So that's
he's
supposed to
having a press
happen.
conference tomorrow. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In the most hilarious political turn events I've heard in a long while, I actually almost dropped a cup of coffee when I saw this. PDP political leader Watson Duke says he's ready to reconcile differences between himself and Chief Secretary Fali Augustine. Mr. Duke said, the way forward.
Oh, wait.
Is to put aside differences which exist and address concerns affecting Tobago. Let's put aside our differences, Fali.
Can't we all?
We had a rough time, and I want us to reconcile and put aside all the differences in the interest of Tobago after I get a resounding cutoff in Trinidad. I put in the last piece. After I get a resounding political cutoff, and I've seen us deliberately in Trinidad. Ready, Duke? Ready? Ready? So is in the interest of Tobago now. He said last week he's scaling back. He's downsizing or something. Duke boy.
I saw the article.
Duke boy, take win, yeah? Take win, Duke, take win. So now that Trinidad tell you no, you want to go back and reconcile with Mr. Augustine in the interest of the issues affecting Tobago. So while he was campaigning in Trinidad, you put the issues in Tobago on the back burner. And now that Trinidad tell you no, you want to reconcile. That's what happens when the Power Breakfast will call you for an interview and you're ignoring us. We call you plenty times. You actually, to be fair, you returned a message once when I messaged you, and you said you'd get back to me. You never did. So yes, I told him. But he wants to reconcile with Fali Augustine now. Put aside the differences. Watson, Fali don't need you now. Speaking of Duke, there's a Duke who, Winston Duke, his cousin, I think, has gotten, is it Ghanaian? Let me make sure I get it right. I don't want to mess up. He and his sister have gotten citizenship. Let me just make sure. I don't want to misquote. All right, Tobago-born Winston Duke, best known for his role as M'Baku in Black Panther, has become a naturalized Rwandan citizen. In a tweet, which was also tweeted by the Rwandan Broadcasting Agency, confirmed that Winston Duke and his sister, Dr. Cindy Duke, are now both Rwandan citizens. He said, quote in the tweet, "Today is a truly auspicious and memorable day for me and my sister at Dr. Cindy Duke. It's our centennial continental birthday. We officially became naturalized Rwandan citizens, our own personal hashtag, something I can't pronounce." And there's a picture of him in front of a Rwandan flag, raising his hand and I guess taking the oath of citizenship. Isn't that interesting?
It's kind of strange, actually.
I found it quite strange, but maybe he wants to reconnect his African roots. Maybe that's it. Maybe he traced his family history back to Rwanda. You understand?
Rwanda, okay. I mean,
yeah,
usually when you hear people
speculating.
in Ghana, because Ghana was such a major port in terms of where slaves left. So a lot of times I know it's Ghanaian.
It's usually East Africa, not so?
Yeah.
Oh, West Africa, sorry.
West Africa.
Usually West Africa.
West Africa. Like when you do ancestry, like I know for ancestry, when I looked at when I did ancestry DNA, a big chunk of my African roots were Nigeria. Some of it was Ghana. You know, they do percentiles if you've ever seen it. So like 14% was Nigeria. The biggest chunk was Nigeria. And then you had different percentiles for Ghana, Congo.
Well, I would imagine some went to the subcontinent of India also. Give me a surname. Or is that a presumption?
Say that again?
Would some have gone to the Indian subcontinent? Give me a surname.
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
Right.
So
you're a real Kalandu. That's what you're saying.
Big Kalandu.
Yeah, a real Kalandu.
Yeah.
So Winston Duke is now Rwandan. I guess he could say officially.
It just comes across a little,
It was just odd to the left wing, so you didn't expect it at all.
Didn't expect that.
Yeah, but congratulations to him and his sister. It's clearly something they wanted to do, for whatever reason. And he also did, I should downloaded some thing with a young Rwandan girl. Did I download it? I think I downloaded it. No, I didn't. Yeah, so congratulations to them on doing that. Do you have newspapers?
No, sorry, I didn't get to get
newspapers these days, but that is all right. It's 17 before 7 o'clock. Let's roll through the newspapers. You think of a question? Somebody's putting a couple of potential questions about the inquiry in the comments, so you can check out those in the meantime and come up with a question. Let's start with the Express. It's Tuesday, the 5th of September. Bill for Pariah Commission of Inquiry continues to rise. A picture of Jerome Lynch on the online front page. Massey stores reopen after Sunday's robbery in St. Anne's. Road relief for commuters, Batiste promises to tackle unemployment. Voltage dip shuts down desalination plant. AC units a hot seller. No surprise there. Because people like this, the heat is debilitating. Right? Let's move now to The Guardian. Duke seeks reconciliation with Fali. We must put Tobago first. And he's blonde now, or platinum blonde now. Senior cop, robbery at Massey stores a great concern to TTPS. Man missing after date with woman he met online. Biker dies after colliding with BMW. Monilal claiming SSA spying on cops. Come on, Guardian, stop doing me that. What else is happening with the Guardian? The page jumps, so give me a second. You're right. Smooth start to new academic year. Only 3 schools dismissed due to water woes. Massey taking care of workers following robbery, and man missing after date with woman he met online. A week after passing since 21-year-old Blanchisseuse farmer Orion Gomez said goodbye to his relatives to go on a date with a girl he met, he has been missing since. Let me leave that alone and go to the news day before I get myself in trouble. I hope he's just having a good time and he's okay. Let's move to the news day now. Unoccupied barge capsizes off Pointe-a-Pierre. Tobago-born Hollywood actor celebrates Rwandan citizenship. Fence in place, Scarborough secondary classes to resume. Watson urges Fali to join forces with him. Monilal, government causing transport worse for Ramai Hindu Trace students. And students happy to return to school, but migrants still awaiting integration. So those are stories trending in your Guardian, Express, and Newsday for today. We could do a question on the migrant children in the nation's schools, or you could do a question on the cost of the Commission of Inquiry?
I think the cost of the Commission of Inquiry, because we talked about it a little bit more. We had touched on the migrant children already anyway. We had done a poll with regard to
That's true. That is true.
Whether people felt that they should be included in the school system, and the majority did say yes. So we could ask something on the cost. Do you think the cost of the Commission of Inquiry is justified? Yeah. 21 million. It's 21 million. Let me go
21 million and counting.
And counting. Can't forget that.
Okay. So the cost of the Commission of Inquiry into the Paria tragedy.
While you do that, let me give the results of our poll from yesterday. Yesterday, we asked you, do you think the Massey Stores in St. Anne's robbery on Sunday morning was an inside job? That was our poll yesterday. Results are in. 62% said yes.
Have they held anybody for that? As an any update?
No, they're investigating.
Okay.
Nope. Not yet.
It's troubling, they said. All right. So our poll is up already. Give us a call, 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. Of course, on YouTube, you can message us as well, yes or no. We love to know where you're watching us from or listening. Do you think the cost of the Commission of Inquiry into the Paria diving tragedy is justified? We should put a figure on that, the $21 million.
Yeah.
I will. That's a good idea.
It's $21 million.
$1 million in the diving.
At this point, yeah.
Do you think $21 million is justified? Yes or no?
I know somebody had asked whether I thought the Commission of Inquiry was justified, period, and having a Commission of Inquiry, why the parties couldn't have just met and agreed on compensation, etc. But the purpose of a Commission of Inquiry really is to find out what went wrong. What were the circumstances that led to this tragedy? And one of the hopefully positive outcomes of things like that is that systems are improved, processes are improved in how you respond to future emergency or crisis situations along that similar line. So that's what a Commission of Inquiry is supposed to ventilate. Beyond the issue of compensation, it's supposed to ventilate process, policies, did they work, what did not work, etc., etc. That ultimately is the goal. Does that always happen? But that's ultimately is the goal, why you have a Commission of Inquiry. You really want to ventilate and find out, what went wrong or what were the circumstances that led to the outcome.
It's a fact-finding mission.
But, yep, 21 million, and that's our poll this morning. Do you think the cost of $21 million spent on the Commission of Inquiry into the Paria diving tragedy is justified? That's our poll this morning.
Yeah.
Talk. No phone calls. Our phones working?
Yeah.
They're working. 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. People on the web and the app, you can send me messages. Is the message board working, Steve?
No, not as yet. We're going through YouTube right now.
So YouTube, you'll have to send your messages on YouTube, on the YouTube stream, where people are already sending droves of messages. I don't know how many of those messages you've read previously, Steve.
No, let me start from now. Beauty Culture, good morning. Slick Money Grip, Arno, good morning. The Great, good morning. Faria Hayatali, good morning. And let's see if we get any votes here. Trillian Boston, good morning. Ishautin Malik says no. Arno, number one, whatever that is, says no. Faria says no. Right, got 3 no's so far, 4 no's. Julia S. Batiste, good morning to you. No.
Yeah, good morning, Julia S. Batiste.
Yeah. Good morning to my good friend Patrick Ferreira is viewing us this morning. So good morning to you, Patrick. Hope all is well. All right.
So we're taking your votes. You see in the poll, it's up there for you to see. $21 million spent on the Commission of Inquiry into the Paria diving tragedy is justified. You can also call us at 222-TALK, 222-8255. And North Americans, of course, toll free at 866-525-1099. People in other parts of the planet, 1-868-222-TALK, 222-8255. And of course, if you're on YouTube, watching us on YouTube or on Facebook, wherever you're watching us, you can send your messages via the YouTube comment section. Roger T says, good morning. Yes. And well, Julia just telling me good morning again.
So do you think the cost of $21 million spent on the Commission of Inquiry into the Paria Paria diving tragedy is justified? And that's 21 million and counting it because it ain't done yet.
It ain't done yet. Do you think that amount, 21 million, is justified? Yes or no? Simple. They'll have a press conference tomorrow. I don't know if it's morning or afternoon, but they'll have a press conference tomorrow. Of course, we'll hear from Mr. Lynch.
There's going to be a test case in compensation law. That's what I will say. When what is said and done.
Oh. All right.
There'll be precedent setting because I'm sure those families they're not leaving it there.
You know, those families, I don't know. Of course, we have news coming up with our anchor, Paul Richards. Beauty culture. I'll have to say yes to the poll. And there's Mr. Lynch is being paid in pounds, right? Slick Money Grip says yes. Guy Small, yes. He says in Trinidad, nowhere else. You don't know, yes. 21 million.
So do you think the cost of $21 million spent on the Commission of Inquiry into the Paria diving tragedy is justified? That's our poll this morning. So 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, toll free, 866-525-1099. Some of you are recovering from Labor Day. And of course, people in other parts of the planet, 1-868-222-TALK. And of course, people, you can send your votes via the YouTube stream.
Correct is right.
You know, I think of Christopher Boudram, and I don't know. I hope he's received a lot of counseling.
I really
because they were not only co-workers, they were friends, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's been a year and a half.
And I just think of his mental state and his emotional state. Even now, you know, because, I mean, 5 of you went in, God spared your life, or however you want to process it. And you think of your colleagues and friends in that environment. He more than anybody else in the world understands what they went through.
He's the only one.
Yeah.
Clifton Simpson said no. Thank you, Clifton. Where are you watching us from, Clifton? We'd like to know.
I'm reading 7, Steve.
Yeah, I know. I just said that. Avril Lynch is a bit hee-haw still.
The heat has stressed out her poor sinuses.
Yeah. Is it raining yet in Arima, Richard?
It rained a little bit and stopped.
No, okay. Drizzling in Port of Spain. And of course, traffic is beginning to build.
So our question is up.
Goodness.
We have Andre Drummond. Do you have Andre Drummond's vote?
Yeah,
no,
says
not
no.
Yeah. Do you think the cost of $21 million spent on the Commission of Inquiry into the Paria diving tragedy is justified? That's our poll this morning. What says you? 222-TALK, 222-8255. I find some of you are not calling, man. 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. And people on the web and the app, well, you'll have to send your votes via the YouTube stream. Ingrid, out of Tucson, Arizona, she says no to the poll. Shows incompetence if they require that amount and more.
It's kind of embarrassing, though, you know. You should have asked for an extensive extension to start and deliver on time. I mean, just to ask for a second extension now, to me, is a little infradig to efficiency. Give me the kind of money you're getting. Forgo your Christmas holidays and finish it on time. After the 7 a.m. news, we'll have Mr. Darius Figueroa, criminologist. We'll also chat with
I have Martin Lincoln. Yeah. What time you want to do, Martin?
Well, Darius is already logged on and standing by, so we could do Mr. Lumpkin just before Darius. It won't be long.
All right, yes. Okay. Yeah, he won't be long.
So Clifton Simpson is saying, I wonder how much of the figure comes back to us as taxes, if at all. He says he's looking on from Port of Spain. Miss Maloney says no. Good morning, Christy, Mrs. R.
I saw the ad for your new play coming up, Richard. Very nice. With that lady sitting in a chair.
Yeah,
I didn't see it. Well, I wasn't on social media.
It's not out for public viewing, Steve.
Oh.
I was sent a preview.
Oh, excuse-moi.
Very nice.
Mwah.
She's back.
You know when we're gonna do America Dance? We'll do that poll on Friday. That is my poll for Friday. America Dance, the 25th anniversary edition. Sponsored by Bengay. And
yes, definitely.
H.S. Wilson. Thank you, H.S. Wilson. Miss Ingrid says no. I don't know if you all got that.
Yeah, I did. I read Miss Ingrid's
Miss
vote.
Maloney says no.
I got that too.
Steve, there's no W Duke 1. Please be advised.
Yeah, thank you. You got
HS Wilson says yes.
Thank you, HS. Oh, geez. Behave yourself, Arno. Behave yourself.
Anon.
Is it?
Wow.
Okay.
Good one, though. Should I put it up?
Paul.
Should I put it up?
Oh, Lord.
I mean, people can see it.
People can see it.
People can see the comments, you know.
I could, you know what, more people will see it.
Oh, people can see the comments that who on the YouTube stream could look at the comments and see what people are saying.
It's a good comment, though. It's a good one.
Bye.
That's a good quote.
All right, well, Paul, I've got the news in my hand. Oh, you can't see it. Okay, so I got my news. Let's get into it. All right. It's exactly 7 o'clock on this, the 50th of September. Let's get into our major news.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital. It's 7 o'clock in Trinidad and Tobago. This is news to 7 a.m. on News Power Digital. First, the headlines. Watson Duke is willing to put aside differences between himself and Fali Augustine for the interest of Tobago. The Education Ministry reports a smooth start to the new school term. Massey Store says it is taking care of workers after the robbery in St. Anne's. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is to travel to Russia this month to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin for talks on weapons. We have details coming up next. This is news to 7 a.m., major news to 7 a.m. on News Power Digital. Good morning. Progressive Democrat Patriots political leader Watson Duke says he is ready to reconcile differences between himself and Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Fali Augustine. In September of last year, Duke resigned as Deputy Chief Secretary of the THA. Following this development, Mr. Augustine and several others resigned from the PDP and subsequently formed the Tobago People's Party. Speaking at a news briefing yesterday, Monday, Duke said the way forward must be putting aside differences which exist and addressing the concerns and issues affecting Tobago. Duke said in spite of sending messages to Mr. Augustine via letters and WhatsApp on reconciliation, he's got no response so far.
Subject, a renewed call for unity in advancing Tobago's future. Very Honorable Fali Augustine, I hope this message finds you well and invigorated in spirit. As fellow members of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, we face challenges and achieve milestones together. My purposive intent in writing to you today, devoid of any animosity, is to encourage us to agree on mutual objectives that serve the welfare of our cherished island, Tobago.
The Education Ministry is reporting a smooth start to the new academic year, with only 3 schools dismissed early due to water woes. The ministry says most students within the system attended school for the opening of the new academic year yesterday. Education Minister Dr. Nian Gasbidali said also 99% of the 830 public, ECCE, primary and secondary schools across the country were ready for their student populations. Dr. Gasbidali said only 0.4% of schools with repair works being conducted on them did not open, while 0.6% of schools opened on rotation due to extensive repair works being completed. She said in all cases except one, repair works are carded to be completed during the course of this week. The minister also said the first day of the new school year also saw a 97% teacher and 83% student turnout at primary schools and a 94% teacher and 82% student turnout at secondary schools. Meanwhile, the Trinidad Tobago Unified Teachers Association President Martin Lumpkin said 2 schools in South Trinidad had to be dismissed early due to a lack of water as a result of the difficulties being experienced by the Water and Sewage Authority. We'll have Mr. Lumpkin on the Power Breakfast Show immediately after our 7 a.m. newscast. Opposition Member of Parliament Barry Padderath is calling on the government to increase the number of contractors hired by WASA to provide truck-borne water, as well as an emergency supplementation to regional corporations to provide as much truck-borne water as they possibly can. The appeal amid water challenges experienced from some customers in South and Central Trinidad following electrical problems which developed at the Salcott plant. The opposition MP is also calling on WASA to establish community tanks, particularly in rural areas, as a short-term measure to assist citizens. Employees who are on duty during the robbery at Massey Store St. Anne's in Port of Spain on Sunday are receiving the requisite care and attention following the traumatizing incident. This according to a statement from the company, which also said the incident is currently under investigation by the police with full cooperation from Massey Stores. It's disclosed that due to this, no further details are available at this time. Massey Store St. Anne's opened yesterday, Monday, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. To serve their valued customers in the St. Anne's community and environs. According to police reports, around 6:20 on Sunday, 5 men, at least one of whom was armed, entered the store and ordered workers to the ground and bound their hands with duct tape. 4 of the 5 employees were tied up with duct tape, and the 5th, a female worker, forced to open the vault. Criminologist Professor Ramesh Deosaran is suggesting there be a return to the system where administrative reports relating to the performance of students in schools were readily available. He believes these details will help provide credible information, which can be used to better assess the progress and challenges faced by his pupils. The criminologist is of the view that such information will ensure fairness to members of the public. Professor Deosaran said the information can be made available through the Freedom of Information Act. Speaking on the Power Breakfast show yesterday, Professor Deosaran said the administrative reports will help in policy making.
The connected issue which worries me a lot is that when Minister Garcia was there, he and the CEO decided to shut down reports, administrative reports, and all the other reports that provided information to the public, like how many students passed, which school they came from, which districts were more successful at other districts. Those demographics were removed. And they said, well, you have to apply to the Freedom of Information Act to get access to these kinds of information, which are very important for policy making and for civic attention.
Professor Deosaran is proposing there be a revisit of the previous decision and return the former concept relating to these reports.
We were blindfolded by that decision. And I wish this new minister, I mean, not new anymore, but she should revise that and make all these reports available to the public more easily, because it will tell us exactly what is happening and where the different boards, school boards and so on could intervene, where the community could intervene.
Internationally, North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un plans to travel to Russia this month to meet with President Vladimir Putin. A U.S. official has told the BBC. The two leaders will discuss the possibility of North Korea providing Moscow with weapons to support its war in Ukraine. Where the talks will be held was not made clear. The Kremlin spokesman had nothing to say on the reports, which were also carried by other U.S. media houses. There was no immediate comment from North Korea. Sources told the New York Times that Mr. Kim will most likely travel by armored train. The meeting comes after the White House said it had new information that arms negotiations between the two countries were actively advancing. We come back home for news of the weather for the period today through midnight. Trinidad, Tobago, partly cloudy to cloudy conditions with scattered showers and the high 70% chance of a few heavy or thunderstorms, mainly during the morning. Conditions expected to improve by afternoon to give way to a mostly settled evening and night. Gusts and street and flash flooding possible in areas of heavy downpours. It's currently 26 and 27 degrees at Piakwa and Crown Point, respectively. Expect a cool high of 30 and 29 degrees at Piakwa and Crown Point later on today. To end our 7 a.m. newscast, here are the headlines once again. Watson Duke is calling on Farley Augustine to put aside their differences in the interest of Tobago. The Education Ministry reports a smooth start to the new school term. Massey Store says it's taking care of workers after the robbery at its St. Anne's branch. A North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, is to travel to Russia this month to meet President Vladimir Putin for talks on weapons. That is news to 7 a.m. right here on News Power Digital. Look out for headlines coming up at 8 a.m. and major news at 12 noon once again.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All righty. Thank you so much, Paul, for our major news. Of course, you can join him again come 8 o'clock for our news brief. All right, quickly, 26 degrees still at Piakwa and Crown Point. Traffic-wise, let me not give you a traffic update. Where you going to get traffic? You will get traffic. It is absolutely, you name the road, you've got traffic. Only place that don't have traffic is Talparo, Tabaquite, St. Mary's Village, Maruga, Guayguari. No traffic there. All right. It's just horrendous. That's a traffic update. Of course, on the solo, your traffic is started just after Cuba. All right. So let's see what other votes we got here. We've got Gregory Bauer saying no. Good morning to Wayne B saying no. Belimba Henry, I think it is. Good morning to you. All right. Okay. So the results, Richard, before we get into Mr. Lumpkin.
Well, our poll this morning was, do you think the cost of $21 million spent on the Commission of Inquiry into the Paria diving tragedy is justified? We had 15 people voting on the poll this morning. Of the 15 people, 10 of you said no, you don't think it was justified, and 5 of you said yes.
All right. Good morning to you, President of TUTOR, Mr. Martin Lumpkin. How are you?
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. I am blessed, not of the best because of what we faced in the reopening of school for yet another academic year. Yes, the majority of schools would have reopened, but we have seen that there are a number of infrastructural issues that still plague a number of schools. So in that context, I'm not too happy, but I'm glad for life. I'm glad to be on your program this morning.
Is that a kind of usual song and dance, Mr. Lumpkin?
Sorry, could you repeat?
I say, isn't that kind of like the usual song and dance?
Yes, it is. It is every year. Every year we come into the new school, the new academic year with this hanging over our heads. We have to say that the majority of schools are aging schools. I will tell you, Granville RC Primary celebrated 97 years. We were decanted approximately 7 years ago. Still haven't been rebuilt. We are basically in another area. I mean, it is a nice area. However, there are a number of schools that are aging. And we find that the Ministry of Education is not doing the necessary repairs, preventative measures as well too. Yes, it is a mammoth task of over 600 schools. However, when you leave schools unattended for a number of years, that's the consequence that you face down the road. And apart from repairs, we have issues of resources, furniture. When I entered my school in 2008, since then to now, we have not received new furniture. And that is over a decade ago. And the majority of schools are facing that as well. One of the things in secondary, the ministry has assigned more students to the schools that they would normally do over the years. So it's been incremental. And so you're taking in new students, yet still you don't have the furniture for that, the resources as well too. And then the heat is another issue we can talk about later on, but let me give you all the opportunity to weigh in as well too. Senator Richards.
How
I got a message
much
from a friend saying that the
Sorry.
Cougar East School parents had to purchase their desk and chairs.
Yes. Let me say this. The Ministry of Education relies heavily on stakeholder involvement. So every 3 years, we do our school development plan. And within that, we have the short term per year, our plans for the year. And one of the areas the Ministry of Education encourages schools is stakeholder involvement. And we can understand, to a point, having stakeholders involved, having businesses get involved, buy-in and so on, and to the school. However, we feel it's been ridiculous over the years, so that anytime a principal makes any sort of representation for resources or equipment and so, the first thing the ministry pulls out is, what about your school development plan? How did you cater for that in it? What about your stakeholders? What about businesses? And so we really and truly, the business of education should not be raising funds and going out to get resources and solicit funds. And so let the educators do what they are paid to do, which is to educate the young people, and should not have the worries of these incidentals as well too. So yes, there are instances, and sometimes if a child needs a transfer, the principal will say we have no space, and so we have no desk. We have the space, but we don't have the desk. And some parents will volunteer to say, I will buy a desk and a chair if you will accept my child. So that's the reality that our educators face on a daily basis.
How much consultation takes place between the education ministry and the school administrators to try and, I guess, ascertain the priority areas?
There is a level of consultation, but we feel that there should be more. There always needs to be that level of dialogue and exchange of ideas and best practices and so forth. But you can't just rely on your school development plan to identify. And even if you do, so you have a document, a working document, a hard copy or soft copy that the ministry, if they go through properly, they will see the requirements and the needs of the schools and can utilize those to prioritize or come up with a list of resources and equipment that schools require. I believe that the Ministry of Education is quite aware of it. However, they sometimes turn a blind eye to it because they are contending that their financial resources are limited and they have to expend it in other areas. And so coming back to infrastructure, and this morning, as I came in, you were speaking about traffic. A number of our educators face traffic on a daily basis, so they go through that stress. And then when you come into the plant, you are also stressed by the infrastructure, the lack of resources. How can you teach properly? And I wouldn't go into salaries, but that's aside. But
that's a whole different conversation. Last semester, there was an issue related to security at a school in Belmont and another school. Are there issues, to your knowledge, of security vulnerabilities that have not been addressed?
There are instances throughout Trinidad and Tobago where there's the lack of the proper security. There's, in most instances, the basic security officer. Secondary schools, the majority have the school safety officers. But what we can say is the requisite numbers are not there. So in the case of Belmont, there was supposed to have been 5 at the time. At the time of the incident, there were 3. There were supposed to be 2 school safety officers. One was assigned to another school. So there was only 1. And if you look at the space of some of these secondary schools, an acre, 2 acres, and so on, proper patrolling of the compound cannot take place. Proper assignment of the security personnel, as well as there were instances where the security cameras were not working. And that is a compliment to the security as well too. So yes, we have security in school. Is it adequate? In our estimation, no. We need to. Even in some primary schools where there's 1 security person assigned, when that person has to do patrol, then they have to close the front gate and do that patrol. What happens to the entrance? It is unsecured. Although you may lock it, it does not prevent someone from breaching that security by climbing or other instances. And we've had over the vacation break-ins into schools where equipment and other items were stolen from the school. And the lack of security is one of the concerns there as well. So during
as we close,
as
we close, I don't know if you represent teachers at the denominational schools, in particular, the Catholic board schools. Has there been consultation on the integration of migrant students with TUTOR? And if you have, are there any concerns regarding that?
Okay, so the concerns, firstly, we have expressed our concerns. We are not against it. by law, we are signatories to the United Nations Rights of the Child. And one of the rights is the right to education. And so we understand it from that point of view. It's also a humanitarian issue as well too. So TUTOR is not against it. However, our concerns are, one, the bridging the language barrier. Yes, some of them may come in with a level of English language because if they were in Trinidad long enough. But then there are those who came across as toddlers and even older speaking Spanish. In the primary school, Spanish is taught, but at a basic level in terms of the basic communication. However, for our educators to actually teach our migrant children, then there has to be an advanced level of language and how to bridge that and teach English language as a second language. We had some talks with the Catholic Education Board of Management. That is the body that has been pushing having migrant children into the schools. And the CEO, Mrs. Mangru, assured us that they did a level of training for some of the schools. They have identified schools that have spaces and even identify students who can qualify. The minister has informed the nation that the legislation has to be looked at, and it's at the Attorney General at this point in time. And we had that concern as well too, because the law allows for non-citizens to be admitted into schools once they get the student visa and the requisite clearance from Ministry of National Security. It would involve this as well too. And our other concern is those unregistered migrants as well. That's a different story. And so you have the language barrier, you have the cultural barriers as well, and we are looking at space as well too. One of the concurrent issues that we have is the recruitment of new teachers. So at a number, quite a bit of primary schools, there are vacancies where teachers have to take more into their classes than the required ratio. So if you are taking now migrant children, what about spaces? And then you have the issue of heat these days. So when you have a large body of persons in one room and the ventilation is not sufficient. So these are some of the issues, resources as well. And as I said earlier, furniture. And so these things have not been, to our minds, addressed in a meaningful way. TUTOR has been asking about it, and we have not been getting the requisite information to be assured that it would not adversely affect our members.
Mr. Lumpkin, thanks for being with us this morning. We appreciate your time and your contribution. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
All right, you're welcome. Sir Martin Lumpkin, the president of TUTOR, talking about the issues related to the reopening of schools in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's make a seamless jump now from education to crime. Which is on two ends of a spectrum. Good morning, Darius Figueroa. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Morning.
Thanks for being so patient. You know, news evolves. Appreciate you being with us this morning. How are you? Long time no see.
Yes, I'm holding on in my old age.
All of us. Except Richard. Richard doesn't get old. Richard pretends that he's this young person. Yeah. Okay. A lot to discuss. We had one of your criminologist colleagues on yesterday, Professor Diosran. So let's start with the issue of the 3D guns and your thought on that startling development.
Well, the whole issue of 3D guns is you have two fundamental realities. One, how it has been handled by the media and the validating elites, and the reality on the ground. One must expect that 3D printed guns must arrive in Trinidad and Tobago because that is a development within the methodology of transnational organized crime. How we are handling it, how the validating elites in the media handling this reality.
What is a validating elite?
A validating elite are those who sing the chorus. of the oligarchy. So
Explain to me.
They don't have the power and privileges of the oligarchy, but they just love to sing the chorus of the oligarchy.
For example, for example.
So there is a specific order of power, and they put out discourse to validate that order of power. So there is no need on their part to understand reality on the ground. Their role is to validate manufactured reality, as with 3D weapons.
What is the objective of that? What are they getting from it?
To stir up even more paranoia about crime, as what we saw in the local government election, where you are now proposing pure lunacy to handle our reality on the ground in order to motivate people to go and vote for you. So what you are telling them to do in no way reflects an effective response to the reality on the ground.
I take it here you're referring to Mrs. Pasabi-Sessa's comments about the guns.
No, I am referring to all the politicians.
Okay. So on all sides.
Yes, because it's a political malaise. And that arises from the politics of race.
So what's the reality on the ground that these politicians are either ignorant of or are being willfully ignorant of, if I'm to read you correctly, in terms of handling the issue of crime?
No, they know the reality on the ground. They're not willing to deal with it. So let me place a fundamental question to the people of Trinidad and Tobago who listen. Since the decade of the 1960s, we have had transnational organized crime in Trinidad and Tobago involved in the illicit trades. We are now in 2023. We have done nothing to turn full face forward to this threat and to deal with this threat since the 1960s. We have allowed it to evolve at its own momentum, never daring to intervene and to impact it, to derail its evolution. And you expect that in 2023, you can be in control of that transnational organized crime reality in Trinidad and Tobago? These people make more money than we make in a year. These people could buy Trinidad and Tobago. And we have never taken the time, the money, and the idea to face up to this reality and to implement the measures that we need to deal with this reality.
Why? Who would benefit from that? Who would benefit from maintaining the status quo as you describe it?
Well, who benefits from maintaining the status quo is those who got rich off the status quo and they rapidly evolve into members of the oligarchy. So, and they are the ones who ensure that they are political investors. So, for example, let's go back to 3D printed guns and this ghost gun talk and all kind of things. Every single gun manufactured in the world, whether it has a serial number on it or not, is a ghost gun. Because when you manufacture a gun in a illicit factory, nobody takes a ballistic impression of that gun, store it on a database for you to come and access it in the future. So you make a 3D printed gun, you use that gun, you leave your brass on the ground, you leave your shots in human bodies or in hard objects. We recover those shots. We recover your brass on the ground. We get a ballistic profile of that gun. Any day we bust in on you and we find that gun in your possession, we match it to our ballistic profile. We have you because the gun have bodies on it. So what is the big mesmerization to paranoid people even further with this ghost gun talk?
Well, why would, if the, according to the narrative has been that, well, borders are porous, illegal guns are coming to the country ad nauseum unchecked, we have sophisticated weaponry, including AR-15, etc. Why would the criminal element now evolve if there are low-level and high sophistication weapons available coming in unchecked to 3D printing gun? What would prompt that change?
Because there are fundamental questions that is not being debated in the media to educate the public on the issues of the efficiency, reliability, and long-term stability of a 3D weapon, especially an automatic weapon on an AR-15 platform or AK-47 platform. Nobody is doing that debate to educate the people.
Well, I just asked you, why the transition to that as opposed to what seems to be widely available to some criminals? What is the advantage of moving to 3D weapons?
There is no advantage because it has serious problems of its longevity, its reliability, because it's moving parts, it is molded in plastic. And you have to take metallic parts, place it in the 3D printer for it to be injected into the plastic moving parts, because you're not going to make a plastic firing pin for the weapon. So that is the fundamental
question. If you're saying that issues with 3D printed weapons, this is what I'm getting, correct me if I'm wrong, why would the criminals invest in a 3D gun printing plant if there are issues with the weapons themselves?
Because 3D printing is a fad that was invented by persons who are peripheral to the game. I could tell you now how a professional sicario deals with weaponry, and it's certainly not 3D printing. So the one that we saw being shown on television that you're interdicted to in Trinidad and Tobago, you have salient questions that arise about the efficiency of that weapon. So the fundamental question is, where's the barrel? Where's the barrel? So that is just another talk that came up out of this ghost gun old talk. But the fact of the matter is, not a significant minority of guns of ghost guns are in fact 3D printed guns. The overwhelming majority of them are standard metal guns made by hand.
So you're suggesting that the attention being placed to 3D printed guns should not be as important as the attention to be placed on the traditional weapons and or locally handmade guns. And are there locally handmade guns being made?
No, that is a high precision craft that is passed down from generation to generation. The fact of the matter is, a professional sicario, it has reached a stage now with transnational organized crime where the professional sicarios, they purchase semi-finished moving parts of AR-15s in the United States of America, finish them in their own workshops, and put together their own guns, perfectly working AR-15s and AK-47s that they manufacture semi-finished parts for and finish it themselves. And they have already learned the means to beat a ballistic profile on a weapon.
You keep referencing Sicarios, which, correct me if I'm wrong, these are Colombian high-level drug cartel operatives. Is that correct? That's what Sicario is?
The best, you have more than Colombians who are Sicarios. You have any and everybody now who's a
right.
Sicario.
So is it that you're thinking Sicarios are operating in Trinidad and Tobago, and that's why we're mentioning it here?
But as long as you have transnational organized crime operating in your country, Sicarios move in and out.
So you're suggesting these individuals are operating in Trinidad and Tobago and importing the AR-15s in parts and reassembling in Trinidad and Tobago. That's what you're saying?
Wherever a Sicario operates, they operate with their own weaponry. They don't use hand-me-downs. They don't use guns with bodies on it. So you use a weapon for a job, and when you finish, you strip the weapon down, or you get rid of it. That is how you beat the ballistics profile. You don't leave your brass on the ground.
So what's the primary mistake law enforcement and the state of Trinidad and Tobago is making in interdicting these issues?
Perpetually seeking to catch up. Always behind the curve since 1960s. Never.
So what do they need to get ahead of the curve? Because you're saying that there's been a big gap in terms of their efficacy in dealing with transnational crime. So what do we need to do as a country, or what would you suggest that we need to do to bridge that gap?
Well, in order for us to have our national security apparatus be restructured to face the deep threat, you have to end the bipolarity of the TTPS. The TTPS is a bipolar organization because of the demand of politics. So the politicians have defined, even before 31st of August 1962, and it continues since then, that the TTPS task is social control. But you cannot police social control and engage with transnational organized crime simultaneously. It's one or the next. So, for example, in the United States of America, in the ghettos of the race minorities in America, where policing is social control, transnational organized crime runs these ghettos. Learn from that, Trinidad and Tobago.
I don't know if you could explain a little bit more what you mean by bipolar in terms of the TTPS. What you mean by that bipolarity that you're talking about precisely?
What is demanded for social control of your own population in specific spaces, marginalized spaces? And what is demanded from a police service to engage with transnational organized crime and actually impact the operations? It's two entirely different ideas, two entirely different discourses, two entirely different methodologies. And in Trinidad and Tobago, from the 31st of August 1962 to present, to engage with transnational organized crime has always lagged behind because we have had this long-standing public denial of the operation of these groups in Trinidad and Tobago. So now that we have had the admission from a police commissioner that her duty is to engage with transnational organized crime, the assault on her is like out of this world. Because all everybody wants from her who opens their mouth and bumps their gum is social control. Refusing to understand that what the nexus between transnational organized crime and its evolution in Trinidad and Tobago and the wanton display of criminality in this country. So social control has collapsed.
What do you make of the drug find of Guayagüari and the impact on what's happening on the East Coast?
No, that as the case with the 3D printer, and as the case with the talk about the Met Lab, all three of them aspects that have been placed in the public domain on the drugs washing ashore simply don't add up. It don't add up. Because when you look at the trafficking methodologies that are used in the Caribbean, the picture of the cocaine kilo bricks released by the TTPS that washed ashore in Guayagüari, the first thing that struck me when I studied that photo is where is the wrapping on those bricks? That is normal procedure for when you are moving kilo bricks via this ocean. There's a specific water seal wrapping that you put on your bricks, and you place it within specific bales because you are running it on boats to your endpoint. The kilos are water soaked, and they are water soaked to the point where they have sold, they have been sold, they have been breached, etc. But the message in the picture released by the TTPS is the trademark on the bricks. And if you understand what is a trademark on a kilo brick, those who find these kilos wash ashore with that mark on those bricks should understand from the beginning, leave it right there.
What do you interpret as what you saw as the mark on the brick? What does that tell you?
When I saw the mark on the brick, I get cold sweat. Because the organization that owns those bricks will spare no effort to send a lesson out on the ground, which they did in August month, that you take our product, you're dead. It's as simple as that.
Should the police know what organization it is by the markings on the bricks?
Well, they're supposed to.
Afraid to ask what organization it is. I said, I mean, if you are able to identify an organization from the markings on the bricks, I would imagine the TTPS can do the same and know where this shipment came from. Would that be correct?
Well, I will tell you, Colombian paramilitary seeking a pipeline to Europe.
It would be, based on what you know of the organization, could there's so many theories rolling around. Would it be sea transport, air transportation? What would it normally be?
Yeah. But there was speculation. There was speculation that it was a flight that was going to Grenada. You heard that too.
Yeah, but even if you're looking to fly to Grenada and drop it in Grenada, the fact of the matter is it wrapped wrong. But it is in search of a pipeline to Europe. That is what they are doing in the Caribbean now.
In search of? So what are you suggesting? It's not been established yet?
No, because they have long depended on America and the American cocaine market. And the American cocaine market has collapsed because of fentanyl. And the people of Trinidad and Tobago should know that they have started interdicting fentanyl being transported by mules in Venezuela. So that means it's here.
So should we be looking out for a fentanyl epidemic here? Because I'm seeing it over major cities all over the US. It's destroying so many lives.
Well, fentanyl has collapsed the cocaine market in America, and that has put a major shot on the Colombian suppliers and their Mexican allies. So these same people are now rushing into the Caribbean, rushing into Europe, looking for a toehold in Europe, which they never bothered to enter. But they have lost America, and they are therefore desperate.
Going back to the cocaine at Worcester, that you said those people should have known about the packaging and identify. I know, well, that is to leave alone. What do you expect to happen in the coming weeks? Because according to police reports, or some reports, I can't confirm with this police reports, there has been a death associated, a murder associated with people trying to recover it, and the areas are being terrorized by persons seeking to recover what they feel may have been taken up by residents. What do you expect? How do you expect this to evolve?
Well, if what you must understand, in July month, the murder toll fell below 15 Trinidad. And in August month, we were also headed to fall below 50. The murder toll in Trinidad and Tobago is now trending down after the highs of 2022 into the first half of 2023. It is now going south. The killing that ensued over that mad drive for kilo bricks. And they talk about how you have US dollars washing ashore and things like that. That is what put our murder toll in August above 50. That is what sent it above 50, because other than that, it was ending up below 50.
Is that, in your opinion, truly works of the police service?
Well, everybody can afford to stand up and claim it. Because if you are a police commissioner who up to today claims the miracle of 2020, anybody thereafter could claim a decline in crime.
So then what do you think, given what you've described as the cartel is looking for a new route to Europe, because the fentanyl epidemic in the US has disrupted the cocaine system through the Caribbean to North America. What do you feel will come out of this new scenario for Trinidad and Tobago, particularly in relation to finds like the bricks in Guayari? What do you think we can expect in the next couple of months, if what you say is accurate?
What always happens, product washing up on a shore is an indication of the volume of product that is moving through your space. So, for example, product washing up is common in Puerto Rico. It's common in the Dominican Republic. So that means that Trinidad and Tobago is in play. Now, if you are looking for a new pipeline to Europe, can you leave out Trinidad and Tobago? All the urea ships, all the methanol ships, all the tankers that leave Trinidad carrying bulk commodities to Europe, can you not want to attach your product to those ships?
Interesting.
So everything that is leaving Trinidad to go to Europe is on the priority list to infiltrate, penetrate, and to carry product on.
You mentioned earlier on this class of persons who you call oligarchs, who have not been stopped since the 1960s and have established themselves in the country in terms of what you suggest they are engaged in. Do you think they can be stopped, or are they untouchable at this stage?
Well, the fundamental reality is, to stop them, you have to build a case against. So the question is, Either the case comes in the form of an extradition warrant from the United States of America, or you build the case locally. Take your choice.
And is this a money trail case or a drug attachment to a particular person or organization case, or both?
It could. It can be anything. It can be anything. What people in Trinidad and Tobago must understand is that persons who were selling kilo bricks to big shots in Trinidad and Tobago have made and are making federal jail in America for drug trafficking. So if America has the will, America can collect the information on any one of them in Trinidad and Tobago who was involved with those persons who are now or who have passed through the federal system.
Let me ask a different kind of question. For the last 60 or so years, the US and Europe have gone through, and other areas, but primarily those, different waves of addiction driving different levels and different types of criminality. So you went through heroin, then you went through cocaine, then you went through methamphetamine, now you're going through fentanyl. You can't, those levels of enterprise cannot be driven without a need, a demand. So is it, as a criminologist, in your opinion, that the human condition is so conditioned now to need this kind of addiction, that it will always be driving some sort of chemical addiction on a large scale to drive this kind of enterprise?
Well, you see, the basis of our addiction is a brain that becomes addicted. We are a desiring animal. And we have this brain that becomes addicted. So it is not the person who is addicted. In addiction studies, we learn it's not the person who is addicted, it's their brain who is addicted. And there's actually
we substitute dopamine and serotonin production by absorbing these chemicals. So your brain changes, right? So is it that the drug smugglers, and it's not only drug smugglers, to me it's cigarette, it's sugar, it's all kind of things.
Yeah,
but the ones that are illegal, are those drugs, because cigarettes and alcohol and sugar do much of the same thing in terms of your brain physiology, to make you want more and more and more. They're not, in some cases, as devastating as heroin, cocaine, fentanyl, methamphetamines, but the process of addiction is the same in terms of your brain operation. So is it that we can never, as human beings, get past the demand because of our neurology?
Yes. And what we have learned from studying the drug trade is that supply creates demand because of that nature of that desiring brain. So what we are seeing now, what you mentioned, the list, is that there is now a strategic shift from plant-based alkaloid drugs to synthetic drugs. All those who continue to depend upon plant-based drugs, the heroin and the cocaine, they are finished. The market has collapsed. So what we see happening now is that the area of the world with the biggest revolution in the illicit trades is Europe. Because in Europe, they have pioneered a cocaine revolution simultaneously with synthetic drugs. So whilst they are flooding Europe with cocaine, you have these drug labs all over Europe, and especially in the Netherlands, pumping out synthetic drugs. So the heroin and the cocaine boys, they are in serious trouble. Is
it an orchestrated transition to change the power brokers?
Of course, it is a specific business policy that was formulated by the Mexican transnationals to get away from plant-based alkaloid drugs, because you are tied to growing plants that you continuously attack. Whereas with my switch to synthetic drugs, I source my precursors from all over the world. And then I end up putting together small labs all over the world, putting together these precursors and doing the finished product.
Because the labs are easier to hide. You don't need a big field.
Yes. You don't need no field of plants to reap. So you
should we be wary of a consumer fentanyl issue in Trinidad and Tobago?
Of course. That is the next stage. It all depends now on the marketing of the products and the willingness of the market in Trinidad and Tobago to change now to these synthetic drugs.
What are the societal signs we should look for?
Well, the physical signs, you have to learn the pharmacology of the drug, right? But what you will notice immediately is that with a range of synthetic drugs being put on the streets, the quantum of money change that is involved in the trade changes dramatically. Because remember, with synthetic...
But we had a situation recently where a national, I think a Chinese national, was caught with a lab somewhere in Trinidad and Tobago. So is that one of the signs we should be looking at? All of a sudden, these little labs popping up. If we caught one, we can presume there may be others.
But that was a meth lab, right?
Yeah, a meth lab.
But my personal point of view, I wanted to know if he was lopsided in the brain enough to put a meth lab where they say a meth lab was. So you intended to burn down the whole high-rise upscale apartment building out?
Well, there's a tendency in this country for upscale apartments not to be rated. A tendency, I see.
Yes. But
okay.
But when you're doing meth in that, there's also a tendency for you to burn down the whole place.
Well, he didn't burn down the place. Unfortunately, they found him. Congratulations to TTPS. And I hope they find others. Darius Figueroa, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. Always great to talk to you. Interesting perspective that is not normally the mainstream perspective or narrative as you see that's being propagated.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Very much so, eh? Interesting. All right, gentlemen.
Well, this is where we leave it for the Power Breakfast Show this morning, on this Tuesday morning. So we'll speak to you bright and early tomorrow morning, which will be Wednesday, midweek already, believe it or not. And we'll take it from there. Remember to smile and laugh. It's good for your health.
Have a great day. All be safe. It's wet today, so be careful on the roads. And remember, the young ones are out, so cast an extra eye. News is next.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's get into it. Good morning, Leonard Knight.